Hey everyone, it's Morgan Brown again, working with Artemis Sportswomen, and this week we will be doing a how to draw a rainbow trout. Remember to visit artemis.nwf.org to learn more about Artemis and how they're such an awesome organization. Here you see the finished product, so follow along if you want to try to create this yourself. You will need a piece of paper to draw on, a second scratch one, a pencil, eraser, pen, and if you want to add color, any media for that, like watercolor, which is what I'll be using, color pencil, crayon, or marker. So let's get started. Let's get started with the front of the fish. I will draw a C shape, and this will be a little taller because rainbow trout tend to have rounder and more blunt snouts. Then I'm going to draw a long arching shape, leaving space at the very end for where the tail is going to be. This is going to be a long slight arch instead of a more defined one like with the brown trout. Then about halfway down the arch, from that front to that end of the line, is where I'm going to start the dorsal fin. Here I'm going to start that by drawing diagonally out and then bringing that back down towards the main body like I am drawing a triangle, but stopping before I get all the way there and bringing that parallel back down. Now for the adipose fin, you go halfway between the back of the dorsal fin and that line to start that, and that is going to be a slight J shape. Now I'm going to draw the upper jaw, angle that line down, and then loop it back up towards where you started. For the lower jaw, I created a second C shape below the top jaw and curved that back into the middle of that upper jaw I created. I then extended the bottom line down in a curved shape just slightly past where the upper jaw ends. For the eye, I start slightly behind where the upper jaw curves back around, and I'm going to draw a slightly dipped line that goes to the back of the jaw. For the actual eye, I go towards the front of that line I just drew, and I draw a circle. Then within the circle, I'm going to draw a sideways teardrop shape. I then add a little C shape to the front and then a backward C shape connected to the back of the circle to add a little bit more dimension to the eye. I then just quickly add a line on the bottom jaw and right above the top jaw to give the jaw a little bit more dimension. So now starting at the tip of the top jaw, I start the first gill cover. This will be somewhat of a stretched backward C shape. For the back gill cover, I'm going to extend this line going slightly upwards, and then when I get slightly behind where that first gill cover ends, I'm going to kink that line upwards. I'm then going to go slightly above and back from where that first gill cover ends at the top, and then I'm going to do that same stretch C shape to connect those two lines to create that back gill cover. I'm then going to add those serrated gills at the bottom that show by just creating little triangle shapes that all head back towards the same point. Now I'm going to move on to the belly and fin area. I'm going to draw a small line to show where the belly shows through before the pectoral fins. Now to show where the pectoral fin starts, I'm going to make two small lines, and then from the middle of those, I'm going to extend a line downwards to create that first part of the pectoral fin. To complete the pectoral fin, I'm just going to create a triangle shape and bring that all together. I like having that second fin peek out, so you'll see me drawing that second one just slightly peeking out and then looping back up behind the first fin. I'm now going to extend the belly slanting slightly upwards until I get below the start of the adipose fin. For the pelvic fin, I'm going to go to the middle of the dorsal fin and go straight down. Here I'm going to create a triangle shape that is similar to that front pectoral fin, again having that second fin peek out. Now where we left that belly line off, I'm going to kink that upwards and then have that line curve and level out until it is even with that top line. To begin with the anal fin, you go to where you started that kink, and then I extended that out to about halfway to where that line above ends. And then I'm going to bring that all back together to connect with the body. For the tail, you're going to want to draw two mirrored curved lines, and with the top one going up to about that same level of that dorsal fin. The rainbow trout will be more boxy with its tail with a very slight V. And then for where the tail joins into the body, I do a stretched backwards C shape. Starting midway down that back gill cover, I draw the lateral line and extend that back to the tail. And then I will do some quick loose lines above and below that lateral line to show where that color change will happen, specifically for that pinkish stripe that rainbow trout have around their lateral line. I'm drawing these lines loose on the gill cover as well because that pinkish color will continue up onto those front gill covers. I am now going through and adding the ray lines to the fins of the trout. The adipose fin does not have these, but I put them on the dorsal, tail, anal, pelvic, and pectoral fins. Rainbow trout have many black spots on their body. These will be smaller and they'll start on the head and gill covers and they'll continue all the way back along the body. The spots are going to be on the fins as well. Then as you get closer to the tail of the fish, the spots will actually start to get larger and a little bit more sporadic in their shape. And so as you're moving back and get close to the tail, make sure that you are making those a little bit bigger and having those kind of joined together and spread out. So the tail on a rainbow trout is typically heavily spotted, so I'm going to make sure I add lots of spots to the tail. So as I'm doing the spots on the belly side of the trout, you can see that I am keeping spots mainly out of that pink ray area. Rainbow trout can have different spots and they vary greatly depending on the fish you're looking at. And so definitely do research and look at the different variations just to see how you want to draw your fish. But I like leaving them slightly off of that pink line to make that pink line really show through. And then I have the spots smaller and kind of fade out before they get to the belly. And now you have a rainbow trout sketch done, and this can be your ending point if you just want to use pencil. So I'm going to now start inking up this drawing. I am using a micron pen in size 08. If you're interested, I'm going to basically start with the eye. This is just where I tend to start inking a drawing, and then I'm just going to move back along the lines that I have created. You can see when I get to the fins, I'm going to leave a space in the line instead of bringing that line entirely through where the fin connects to the body. This is just to show where the fin will then join into the body and give that more of a connected look rather than looking like the fins are completely separated from the fish. I will do that both on that top dorsal fin and on the adipose fin. On the edges of the fins, you can see that I am making them more jagged to show details of how those fins lay and where the rays end. I'm going just through the shapes, and as I'm going, you can see that I might not be perfectly following those lines. I might be fixing some areas that I didn't necessarily like where I had drawn a line before, and this is just because those pencil lines are more of a guide for your pen line, so don't be afraid to fix something if you don't like the way it looks. And making sure to get those little details in as well and not leave those out, since I will be erasing the pencil lines. So like on those gill covers, I am making sure to add those little color change and ripples onto the gill covers. So you can see that as I get to the belly and the bottom fins as well, I'm going to leave that same space for the pelvic fin, but not for the anal fin. And then you can see as I'm going, I am going to start adding the rays as I go, just to keep those lines consistent with the pressure that I'm doing in those areas. Again, making sure that for that anal fin, I'm actually continuing that line all the way through to make that one look a little bit more separated, and adding some jagged edges to the edge of that fin. When I draw the lateral line in pin, I am actually going to leave some spaces instead of drawing that as a solid line like I did with pencil. This is just because that lateral line is going to be sometimes a little bit harder to see in person, and so I want to make that a little bit more realistic by having it not as strong with the pin lines. I'm going to do that same thing with where I created those color edges with the pencil marks, and just do that really loose and really quick, to that way it's not a solid line. So when I start putting the spots on the fish, I'm going to do this very quickly and not really worry about making the spots perfectly round or anything, since when you look at rainbow trout, their spots can vary in their shape. They're never perfectly circle. And so I'm going to bring those spots along the face and then down onto the gill cover, basically trying to follow where I had done spots with pencil, but I am going to add more spots than I had originally done there, just because I want this fish to be a little bit more heavily spotted than I drew originally. For the dorsal fin, I am going to have these spots actually follow along those rays that I drew. And as I'm moving back and getting closer to that adipose fin and the tail, I am going to start having those spots get a little bit larger and a little bit more erratic in the shape. And you can see that I'm really just kind of scribbling those in and not making them perfect at all. And then when I get to the tail spots as well, I am going to make that heavily spotted and having the spots follow along the ray lines that I drew, very similar to what I did with the dorsal fin. For the spots on the lower side of the fish below that pink stripe area, I am going to make them slightly smaller. I am going to do this just because I am having those spots fade away. So having them smaller will make them look more naturally like they are fading away as it gets towards that belly area. And now you can see that I am wrapping up the pin part of this drawing. And so now once you're here, erase all those pencil lines and you will have a nice clean ink drawing of a rainbow trout. Depending on the pen that you're using, be careful with how hard you push with erasing, because Some pens are built to withstand erasing like this one, but some might make the lines fade slightly. So if you guys have lines fade, just go over quickly again those couple spots that got too light with your pen and darken them up. So rainbow trout bodies are typically a greenish color, and you will see that this green color goes along the back of the fish onto the tail and the fins, and then they have a pinkish color that will go along that lateral line, and that will also continue up onto the gill plates. So I am just quickly mixing up a light green that I'm going to lay down as my base color. I'm going to use several different greens just to build up that color and show variation, since when you look at rainbow trout, it's not like they're just one color of green. The color normally varies as you move along their body. So I am going to start laying down that base color on the face and move back along the back. On the face, I'm going to keep the green off of that front jaw and the bottom jaw, because rainbow trout have their inner mouths and gums will be a white color, and that will kind of show out onto their face as well. I am also going to keep the green off of the gill covers and that lateral line, so that way when I add that pink color, it shows through really clearly and nicely. I will bring that green color that I have mixed up onto that top dorsal fin, adipose fin, and the tail. I will also bring that green color onto the bottom fins as well. So when I get to the bottom part of the fish, I dilute that green, since I am going to have that color kind of fade away, since rainbow trout can fade into a more of a silvery green on their belly areas. So now you can see that I'm kind of mixing up a darker green that I am going to do along that front part of the jaw, and just slightly do along the back, bringing it down below on that back gill cover. I am bringing a darker color along the back, because when you look at rainbow trout, you'll often see that right along their top back areas where that darkest green is going to sit. I'm going to bring that green slightly up into that dorsal fin, just so that green kind of fades and it's not a hard line there, as well as bringing that green into that base of the tail as well, to show that kind of fading of the color. Now I'm going to add a yellow in there to vary that green even more. This will just add dimension to the fish, add some color to the edge of the fins, just to give it a little bit more of that realistic color change that you'll see when looking at a trout. I'm also going to use this yellow color for the eye to bring that color all around the fish, and so it's along the body, the fins, and the eye, and that way you're not having a color that's just in one single spot. You'll want to do this when creating art, because if you have color that's only in one specific spot, your eye is most likely going to be drawn just to that one spot, because that color is so rare. So for the pink color, I am going to mix up just a generally light pink to put along that lateral line stripe. So I'm just going to start at that front and carry that pink color back along that lateral line. So I want to keep that initial layer pretty light because I'm going to go back in right behind that back gill cover and make it a little bit darker along the middle of the line to give the line some definition. I'm also going to continue that pink color onto the base of the tail and then just slightly along the fins as well, just because you can kind of see that pink color making its way into the fins on different variations of rainbow trout. For the gill covers, I am going to make that pink slightly lighter than I am on that darkest part of the lateral line stripe. And lastly, I'm just going to mix up a slight purple color that I'm going to use along the belly of the fish and the bottom of the fish to add a shadowed look, since I am having that fish fade to a silvery color on the bottom. Just adding that very slight color there is going to add a little bit more definition to the fish along the bottom side. And now we have a rainbow trout. And just to conclude, they have that rounded, more stubby snout. They will have that pink stripe along their body, and their body is mostly that greenish color, and the tail is going to be more boxy, not with a deep V. They have small black spots that go down their body and that get larger towards the base of the tail. And then the inner parts of their mouths and gums are white. And so there you are. You now have a completed colored rainbow trout. So remember to check out Artemis at artemis.nwf.org and on all their social medias, and make sure you guys tag them if you decide to draw this as well, because we would all love to see your guys' attempts. Thank you.